basically to have the entire engineering committee working toward bigger goals. So as president, I guess one thing you can do, one thing I can do is make a, say, web blog and make updates every week on what project you're working on, and share with the rest of the public. Update every week, so you can indicate to the rest of engineering committee that you're doing things, and I think your passion, and then the president's passion and effort, I feel, can be diffused to the students. And once they can, by having this open system.
Okay. Thanks. Rishi?
So there's a couple of things that I want to accomplish. Now, the first thing I want to say is that it would be a big accomplishment for a president to get one big project done in their term. And that's something that often people don't come to that realization until the end of their term. I already realized that because I do have a lot of experience with NSOC. The one project that I would feel great about bringing to total completion during my term is the Engineering Society Endowment Fund, which was established last year and is currently in a state of complete disarray. Basically, nothing has been done since this money started to be collected. We're collecting almost $400,000 a year. We have no idea what we're going to do with it, how we're going to invest it, how we're going to spend it, who's going to have authority over it, what organization will hold it, whether it will be NSOC or the university or a foundation that's owned by NSOC. I mean, there's so many issues that I don't have enough fingers for all of them. So I'm going to tell you that the first thing that I want to do if I become president is to sit down and work out every last one of those issues. We need to have a constitution that governs how this money will be spent, have all those bylaws, and I think everyone knows that I'm the person you want for writing constitutions and bylaws.
Albert?
So I think the one big thing that I want to see, and as Rishi said, one thing is really enough as a president, because a year is not that long, but is to, again, set in stone the frameworks that we need to establish academic advocacy. So what does that mean? It's about establishing a known system through all parties, such as the discipline clubs, department chairs, faculty leadership, class reps, and students, to make sure people are actually accountable and that the information and that the issues get shared and brought up to the appropriate people, such that in the future, and as we go through our years, these big academic issues can actually be dealt with effectively and not just get lost in the mix and mingle of things, right? Especially with accreditation requirements changing in the next couple of years, setting this up for the future will really benefit the students of the future to really have an input in their future education. So that's the big project that I want to put into place.
All right, so the way I wanted to go about the whole jobs thing, you guys are probably wondering about that, is I want to survey the students here and find out from them what are the main employers that they would like to work for. What is your preferred place of employment? So when we get that survey back from all the students, you obviously have some dream job that you want to go for. So when we have that survey back, I want to aim for 3 to 5 companies, top 3 to 5 companies that everybody wants to work for, and try to get those companies into our summer job fair, PUI, and full-time afterwards. So if I can get 3 to 5 of those companies coming in, I think that's pretty successful. Secondly, the whole lecture capturing thing. If I can have 3 to 5 cameras installed at the back of the classrooms in the largest classrooms, I think I would call it successful.
Okay, great, thanks. So I think part of what I mentioned was, I'll let you down, but part of what I mentioned was that I'll be asking questions directed towards your specific platforms as well. And again, because Shane has to leave momentarily, we'll begin with a question from Shane's platform. He talked about facilitating international connections and about how that impacts students. I was wondering if you could elaborate some specifics on how external organization relations can help impact students and provide benefit to our students.
Okay, sure. So right now, this exchange program with the National University of Singapore, and then it's only offered for NSI students, but it's a very popular program, and then all the students gain a lot of values from it. And what I was and what I would propose is that we can start establishing those connections from student levels. So by having interconferencing with, say, other universities in Asia or US or Europe, we can start building the connection among the students. And this network of students while we share the research that's happening at each university, the curriculum each university is having, we can eventually evolve this student network to be the formal exchange network that the university approves. And I think that's how you can show the value of the international connection and then promote more of the exchange programs to take place for engineering.
Great, thanks. Do any of the other candidates want to comment on something related to external organizations, how they can see that benefiting our students? Okay, you can pass. We have one question over here.
I have technically 4.
Start with one. Start with
Let's,
one.
let's start with question 1. What is the purpose of NSOC? What is the purpose of
Can we begin
NSOC?
with Albert?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you look at the kind of vague mission statement that NSOC's been running with for the last who knows how many decades, it's to serve as a representative body for the students, right? And now my interpretation of that message really is to be able to drive the student needs of the current student body. So, you know, over the years, NSOC's demographic and the Faculty of Engineering's demographic has really shifted throughout the decades, right? And back in the day when maybe partying and social activities were really something that NSOC filled a gap in, nowadays, as Rishi said, we have tons of clubs and different groups on campus to do that. So what are the real focuses of NSOC supposed to be now? Academics and professional development. I think that everybody, again, resonates with those ideas, and that's what NSOC's really supposed to be serving.
Thanks. Shane?
So I think the NSOC, the basic goal is to manage the resources that UofT owns, manage clubs, fundings, and decide on allocation of those resources. But I think the main goal should be to act as an active leader in really revolutionizing the UofT engineering and promote it at bigger scale, external. And I think the NSOC president should be the one who's most proud of being a UofT engineer. and promote, have a real passion to make UofT engineering the de facto best in Canada.
Thank you. Abby?
Yeah, so Engineering Society, in my opinion, is there to eventually serve the students in what their needs are. Just kind of agreeing with what Albert said earlier. That gap that was before is not the same now. So what I see now NSOC doing is working with the faculty, just because we have those amazing relationships with them, into improving the student life, whether it's in terms of education, academics, curriculum, anything. So main liaison between that, and then also on top of that, serving the students in terms of other events such as orientation, UTech, all those. Just providing a variety of things that are missing for students as a whole experience.
Rishi?
My opinion, the role of NSOC is to be the backbone of the student community by being the organization that's there with a stable budget that we know what it's going to be from year to year, with stable governance that we know who's going to be running it next year, and to provide that year-to-year stability that you're never going to be able to get from just an ad hoc organization. There's tons of things that are happening here. I would bet that more than 50% of the activities that are happening on this campus are not affiliated with the student government in any way. And that's totally fine because they don't need to be. NSOC needs to be there for the things that require an NSOC. We need an NSOC to have a store because you can't get a corporation's bank account just registered to your home. We need NSOC to have a student-operated pub, which we have, which is great. We need NSOC to have a Frosh Week. We need NSOC to have Godaiva Week because we need to have a face to those organizations that the faculty can come to when they have issues. So NSOC exists to provide all of the things that require a stable, organized, funded organization. And everything else, can be done by others.
Thank you. Abby? Shane has a question for the candidates, since he has to leave shortly.
So I guess I'll ask one question for now, and questions to Abby. So you mentioned about remote industry connections, and you mentioned an example of Carleton and Ross engineer, over your engineer. So do you think this is just simply because of industry connection, or just a flaw in our education curriculum, the curriculum of the UofT engineering? And if so, do you plan to somehow change the UofT curriculum?
Well, me personally, if like the NSOC president cannot do that because it is obviously set by the CEAB,
Do you, okay.
the Canadian Engineering
But what
Accreditation.
about electives? Say for those electives, that students won't require to graduate, but just by giving them options, okay, different kind of
Question,
courses.
can you summarize your question? Yeah.
So I think one problem with the curriculum is that it lacks optionality.
Okay.
In the engineering curriculum.
Okay.
So say for like most engineering courses, all your timetables set. So is there any way they can do this?
To be honest, I don't have the details of the CEAB requirements in order to be an accredited program. Engineering science right now is part of, it's actually in the limbo of being, it's on the borderline of being an accredited program. Right now it is, but I know they work hard every year and trying to maintain that status. Unfortunately, I do not have the details in the whole programming and curriculum basis, but to be honest, I don't think that's an issue, because talking to Bombardier's HR, they say that they just have better relations with career centers.
Okay.
Do you have another comment? Rishi?
I mean, what I would say is I absolutely do not feel there's any deficiency in our curriculum. I think if you ask anyone, they're going to tell you that they know that UT engineers know how to get the job done. Where there is a big deficiency is in the relationships that we build with the company. And I can tell you at my experience in my PY employer, if you're a manager and you want to hire a student, the form that you fill out has a list of universities on it, and you can check boxes for where you want HR to recruit. Now, there are only 4 boxes on it for 4 universities, right? There's U of T, there's Ryerson, there's Queen's, and there's Leicester. If you're from another university, you're never ever going to see those jobs. And that's because those universities have not built a relationship with that company's HR department. So if there are companies that are not taking a look at our students, that's because our university and our career center has not gone out there and built a relationship with their HR rep to actually find out what these things are happening. And I believe that absolutely that is the way to increase the opportunities for our students.
And I totally agree with that. Again, working at Unilever, we have a policy to hire only from McMaster and U of T, just based on the relationships that we have with these schools, right? So totally agree on that point. In terms of like curriculum flexibility, I mean that's something definitely like worth looking into for the future. But I think that on an academic scale, that there are more pertinent issues I think that the student body is really facing in terms of their academics, right? So definitely something for the long term. And if there's a good framework for it, then definitely that's something that EDSOC can move into in the future. But that's a very big project for a very long term.
Great, thanks. Can I get time to stay for another question? Or?
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna pass the question on to the back. Anyone else? Peter?
I have a kind of think outside the box question. The atrium renovation that happened, what was it, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? 4 years? Was that? Do you guys remember the atrium before the renovation? Or
Yes.
you guys not? Okay, cool.
The old
Yes, we do.
It was a controversial subject, and even though it was cool to get some new tables and stuff like that, a lot of people criticized it for a lot of reasons. So hypothetically, if you were in that situation, you had the same budget, same time schedule, what would you have done differently? What do you think were the good things that happened? What do you think were the bad things that happened? And what would you have done differently?
Yeah, so I think the first problem with the atrium renovation project was the scope. The people who were running it didn't know for a long time exactly what they wanted to actually do. And that's a big problem with NSOC, because they started collecting money for the atrium renovation project. And they had this fantastic architectural rendering, which I'm sure you've seen, which involved a staircase which would actually move and stick. It was beautiful. I believe it won an award. And it was probably going to cost like $20 million to build it. So we had 400,000, so we got new tables and chairs. And that's a problem, because we didn't know what the scope of the project was when we started it. So we had no idea how much money we needed, and we had no idea at the end whether or not it was a success. We didn't know we were trying to achieve in the first place. So what I want to bring to NSOC is a sense of when we're starting a project, we need to know what the timeline is. So if you want to talk specifically about the atrium renovation, I think the new tables and chairs are good. I think what they do with the ceilings is great because there's a lot more light down there than there used to be. And the fact there's actually Wi-Fi in the atrium is like a big deal. And the power outlets. Power outlets are key. But what we could have done better, that didn't have to cost $400,000. Agreed.
Yeah, so I do agree with that. Chairs and tables that were old, they have to be changed. So what we did there is really good, the fact that we replaced them. But I also feel like the chairs and tables that are there right now are not optimal for studying purposes. So we should have went out to students and see, hey, you're going to be eating lunch here, you're going to be studying here, doing whatever you want there. This is what you need. So yeah, you got to serve the students on that front. Secondly, I know that the ceiling was changed. I don't know why exactly it's open right now, I was actually looking at it today, and felt like if that wasn't changed, and if only light fixtures were changed, that would have been okay. But then again, right now, since I was in first year when that happened, I don't know too much detail of all that. So I would say ceiling would be where we could save cost and put the money somewhere else.
Trim cat? He's such a cute pet. So definitely echoing some of the sentiments that were brought up again. So like Rishi said, you know, the scope of the project was just all over the place, right? Nobody really knew what the end goal was, and that's, as Rishi mentioned again, one of NSOC's biggest problems, right? Like, we never actually have a metric or like a clear vision of where it is that we want to end up, let alone like how we're going to get there, right? So that's definitely one thing that would have been mitigated, that should have been mitigated from the start. But given the situation that it was in, like, I mean, to the credit of the CAF planning group, they did actually do surveys on the chairs and whatnot. The only thing is that they didn't do surveys with the chairs and the tables together, which is why we have this issue. So that would have been smart to do, I guess. But aside from that, I think that the real opportunity that was lost there was to reevaluate based on current student needs whether or not the new proposal was worth going through with, right? Because they knew they had a budget problem, they knew they had to redesign, but did they consult the students on the whole as to what those big changes might be? No, not really. So I think that would have been a good opportunity to really change something.
Thanks. So I'm going to change the gears for questions a little bit and talk about team. So NSOC's a big machine, and a lot of it involves leading the team. And as a president, you are the leader of this whole big group, right? And I would like you guys to talk about what you think the biggest challenge leading a team might be, or keeping that team together, and how would you overcome that challenge? And Abby, can you begin?
Sure. So I've had quite a bit of experience leading a team. So I guess part of Frosh Week, bring it from there. So biggest challenging when you're leading a team is keeping everyone motivated and then aligned with your vision and the end goal. That is a challenge, but then a way to overcome that is to find out why exactly did the person went for that position. And when you talk to people about that, you gotta keep reminding them on an ongoing basis. Be like, hey, this is what motivated you to run at that time, and this is what you should be doing. You gotta talk to them a bit more about what really gets them going, and then try to align that with their work stream. Yeah, that's all. Thanks. Albert?
Yeah, so definitely share those sentiments. I think aligning motivation and really understanding motivation of your team members is really difficult, because a lot of times if somebody maybe, doesn't have the most honest of intentions, they won't want to let you know why they're there, right? Or they won't want to let you know what's going on in their minds. So that's probably the most difficult part of things. And so, in my opinion, the best way to mitigate that is to keep things informal, right? Keep things social. At the end of the day, we're still a student society, right? We're not here to be all serious all the time. We do want to have fun, and we do want to enjoy the work that we do. So to really make sure that the conversations that we have as a team are informal and that they do kind of resonate with like our inner passions and what we really believe we want to see in the society, right? So those are kind of like the big issues, aligning that motivation and really discovering what that motivation is, right? Don't keep it too standard. Don't make it like a managerial role where somebody's sitting across from you, but keep it informal and keep it fun. So.
Rishi?
By far, the biggest challenge in leading a team in this context is like, what do I offer somebody when I'm telling them to do something that over a course of a year is going to take hundreds and hundreds of hours? What is it that we can really offer them? It's going to make that worthwhile for them. And NSOC offers you all these intangibles. It offers you a line to put on your resume. It offers you a hard hat or a patch or these things that get you a little bit of social recognition. But fundamentally, I think the biggest problem that we have is that we're not being able to build motivated people. And I want to relate an example. At the board of directors, we had a professor come speak to us. And one thing that he asked everyone was, what's one thing that you're proud of that you've done with NSOC? And nobody could answer that question. So what I want to do to motivate people is I want to make them proud of the work that we're doing with NSOC. And I want to make them understand how